Hello, dear sisters and brothers, and welcome to the Faith Perspective here on Catholic SG Radio. I'm Andre Achak, and today, on the Faith Perspective, it's always an opportunity for us to talk about trending issues, events that are happening in and around the world, and particularly in the church. Now, I don't know about you, but what was Pope Francis's trip for you when the Holy Father was here? For me, it was a whirlwind. Yeah, it's like as though we spent about 9 months preparing for him to come, and then he just came within those 3 days, whoosh, and he was gone. But the Holy Father made truly an impression on many, many people, Catholic and non-Catholic. And that is why I believe that's the reason also why the Catholic Theological Network has been inspired to organize a conference, this Saturday, the 30th, and it's titled Pope Francis in Singapore, Theological Musings Inspired by the Papal Visit. And so we've invited your sisters and brothers, our good friend Nick Chui. Now, you all know Nick. Nick is he is a lay theologian with the Catholic Theology Network, and he's also an educator and a catechist. Welcome back, Nick. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. All right. Let's get to it. So, the Catholic Theological Network, right? Why this conference? And who mooted it?
Well, you want the wow answer or the wow answer? Or you want both?
Maybe a bit of both.
Both, okay.
Yeah, okay.
The wow answer is actually, you can say, probably the more important one. Because I think all of us felt what Luke's Gospel say, when the Emmaus disciples, when they walked along and talked to Jesus without knowing him,
right?
Were not our hearts burning when he opened to us the scriptures?
Oh, I like that.
Correct.
Yeah.
So when the Pope visited and he shared various things, and also through his gestures, all of us speakers felt that way and asked ourselves the questions, were our hearts not burning? And maybe some of us were surprised that we felt that impact. So we thought, that we should share that with others. So it's actually a very simple reason, the wow reason, probably the more important one. The walao reason, right? So the oh my gosh answer is actually on the last day when the Pope made interreligious dialogue at Catholic Junior College. The Pope said, all religions are paths to God. I remember listening to it when I was gymming. So the bench press can carry or cannot carry. Because
I was in the auditorium.
Auditorium. When he said that, I know, he's going to leave already, and then everything is going to explode. And sure enough, the online space exploded.
Yeah.
Some Catholics accused the Pope, you are teaching error. Others will say, you are very kurang ajar, very rude. How can you say such a thing about the Holy Father? You're very disrespectful and disobedient. Essentially, online space got very angry. Regardless of
both sides, right?
Both sides, very angry with each other. Some angry with the Pope, some angry at those who are angry with the Pope, but also still angry.
Yes.
Yeah, so that is
doesn't
not
help
good lah. That's not good lah.
Exactly.
So is it?
Okay.
So whatever case, maybe that's not good. For myself and a few others, we thought maybe one thing we can do maybe to lower the temperature is to try to harmonize what he said with official Catholic teaching on the topic of relationship between Christianity and other religions. So I did write 2 pieces. Seems to be okay, well received enough.
Right.
But eventually everything died down. Everything did die down, and we did ask the question. Okay, everything died down. The anger was a bit of whirlwind. So now nobody talks about it. But perhaps there are some enduring things we should nevertheless relook. So we want to aim for the enduring thing, and one enduring thing would be actually his first apostolic exhortation, Evangelii Gaudium, on the joy of the gospel.
That's right.
And we think, I think it would be impossible to understand him and his gestures also without this foundational document. So let's look at that document with fresh eyes in the light of his visit to Singapore, and also in the light of this controversy.
Actually, I'm really happy that you all are going to, be tackling, so to speak, that question, because I think the Holy Father, in his pastoral way, sometimes does seem to oversimplify things. But for those of us who know his heart, we know that he is trying to talk to the individual. And he tries, I think, like a father, try to remove as many obstacles as possible.
Yes.
That's my take. Quite personal in a sense, but I mean, I like to see it that way, that he's coming from that very pastoral and very fatherly way of looking at things. So with that, what can we expect from this conference? So you've given us a foretaste of what to expect. I mean, and I'm really happy, but give us a little bit more.
And I think a few things we will learn that Pope Francis is a passionate evangelizer.
Yeah.
So, and he has lots of great ideas for Catholics to be better evangelists. So actually our conference will comprise three major topics. First is the how of evangelization. How do you do it effectively?
Right.
And I'll be doing that, and essentially I will look at how the state address and the homily would be good models for evangelization.
Right, yeah.
A lot of times we say people are bored. Why are people bored? You are answering questions they are not asking. So that's actually an Evangelii Gaudium.
Right.
So how to answer. First, you must know what questions are on people's minds.
Correct.
Then you can provide
The
good answers. So how does he do that? I'll be looking at Evangelii Gaudium and also his state address.
Okay.
And Dominic, the president of Catholic Theology Network, will be discussing the why of evangelization. Why do it? What exactly is evangelization?
Good.
Is it simply doing good deeds? Where does the role of proclaiming Jesus Christ explicitly come into play?
Mm-hmm.
And what does Evangelii Gaudium say? And Evangelii Gaudium is not written in a vacuum. There are other great documents on evangelization after Vatican II especially.
Yeah.
Evangelii Nunciandi, Paul VI, Redemptoris Missio, John Paul II. Need to understand the Pope's contribution in the light of his predecessors, Fair.
Yeah.
So Dominic will be discussing the why of and the what of evangelization.
Right.
And finally, we'll have Mr. Lawrence Chong. I mean, Lawrence was very famous for that 2-minute conversation in Catholic Junior College.
That's right, with the Holy Father.
Correct. So everybody was talking about it. I think he was sharing with me. His WhatsApp exploded. Everybody, what's this? What's this? Okay. So we thought, what's this? So we will ask him directly what happened.
Okay, that'll be good.
But anyway, we know him. He's a consultant, of course, for the
Yes.
Pontifical Council for Interreligious Dialogue.
Right.
He will share his perspective on interreligious dialogue. Probably he'll discuss probably a bit of what happened in Catholic Junior College. I'm sure from an insider perspective, I leave it to him.
Yeah.
But the whole idea is why is interreligious dialogue in both the Church's strategic interests and part of the Church's evangelizing mission. So it is it is not separate from the Church's evangelizing mission, but it is actually part of it. So how does that work? So Lawrence will be talking about.
I think that'll be very,
close
very
with
interesting.
Open conversation. We invited Carmelite Friar Father Reginald Marie to join us.
Yeah. I was going to ask you. So what will Father Reginald be talking about?
Father Reginald will be.
So he'll be on the panel.
On the panel, open forum, sharing his perspective on evangelization.
Right.
From the perspective of a clergyman. Yeah.
Right. Okay. I can expect a lively exchange from all four of you.
Hoping for that to happen, and also with the audience. So we are
That's
actually
right.
our conference is designed to have for discussion.
Right.
So there will be lots of opportunities for that.
Good, healthy discussion.
Yes.
I think. And, I think even if someone may not totally agree, right, I think it's good for this dialogue to happen. And thank you, actually, to the Catholic Theological Network for organizing this, because really it's a platform, or that you're giving actually a platform to people who have got doubts. I've also been reading on social media, and some people whom you and I know very well who also have had doubts about what the Holy Father said. And so maybe, hopefully, they can come to this conference and sort of
Yes.
maybe not straighten things out, I would say, but at least agree to understand, and even if you disagree, let's do it charitably.
Yes, I think understanding the perspective of others from the inside, I think, and listening to it and responding accordingly is always better than sometimes shouting in an online space,
Yeah, and that's it, I think sometimes these keyboard warriors, right? I mean, even for myself, sometimes I will start typing, and something will get to me, and then I will start typing, and then after a while, I'll look at it, and then, no, I don't think I want this out there.
Yes.
So I think the Holy Spirit is working there.
So the Pope talks a lot about a culture of encounter. So a culture
That's
of
right.
encounter, there's a difference between just simply a meeting or just simply an interaction versus an encounter. When you encounter somebody, you try to know his heart. So is it possible in an online space? It is, but it is more difficult.
It's more difficult, yeah.
Because we are all embodied human beings, So I think it would be better facilitated when it is face-to-face. Of course, that requires an investment of time.
Sure.
So, we will see who would want to do that.
Right. Okay, now, in the Holy Father's homily at the National Stadium, right, I'd like to ask you to share your thoughts on the Holy Father's message to the flock of Singapore. I mean, there was so much that he said, but I wanted your thoughts on it.
Yes, I was listening, and actually, the statement which when we just now I mentioned about were not our hearts burning, is precisely actually his first sentence in his homily. Knowledge puffs up, but love builds up. It's actually a very evocative image, which of course he took from St. Paul. It's not Pope Francis' original.
That's right.
Because when you think about it, sometimes when something is puffed up, it can look very impressive on the surface.
Oh, yeah.
It's the surface, but usually we say that if it's just simply puffed up, it's often full of hot air. And we all know what happens when you describe something or somebody. This person is full of hot air. If you prick, and then everything deflates, right?
Yeah, it's like the curry puffs that we get nowadays.
Yes, correct. Not so nourishing. Eat already. Why do I need to eat more than one? And why does it cost?
It's all
the curry puff is
inside.
getting smaller. My inflation or whatever. So it's because of inflation, I need to puff up the curry puff, right?
Okay.
So and it's interesting. So people will say yes, of course, being puffed up is not good.
Yeah.
But Paul says knowledge can puff you up. And perhaps in the Singapore context, it's a bit challenging. Sometimes, we like to praise children. In Hokkien, right? It's in kiang, very smart. This guy full of knowledge. The boy full of knowledge. He know a lot of things. In Hokkien or informally,
But it's very cultural, isn't it?
He know a lot of things. Very good.
Yeah.
Kiang.
Yeah.
But Paul says knowledge puffs up. Very provocative. He didn't say knowledge can puff up. He said knowledge puffs up. He's a very knowledgeable person himself. Right? All right? So
absolutely.
Obviously he was using some kind of rhetorical device to help you to pay attention. Oh, why you make such an absolute statement?
And philosophical as well.
Better
right?
pay attention. Yeah, correct. So the idea is that knowledge can indeed puff people up.
Yeah.
But he contrasts it with love, which builds up. So when something is built up, it is definitely more foundational. It probably will take a longer time, but it is definitely on a better foundation, something more solid, something enduring.
Yeah.
And without good foundations, things crumble. Knowledge needs to be built on the foundation of love. Then it can be knowledge which saves rather than knowledge which puffs up.
And it's very interesting that the Holy Father's whole homily begins with this very statement.
Yes.
Actually, I thought he didn't have to go any further. In a sense.
In a sense, you can talk for 10 minutes about that.
Yeah. And I remember I was on the field, and actually there was a lot going on, right? But those words were very, very powerful. Very, very powerful. And the fact that we're talking about it means, I think it's I hope at least that many people have taken it to heart and have really pondered on it. So, but sorry, please continue. So, your thoughts. I asked
no
for
problem. The line chosen was already memorable, and what made it even more memorable was actually the image he chose to discuss this text from St. Paul. He actually allowed to look at the National Stadium and the skyscrapers which surrounded it. What was it built on? Right? So he says the following, right? I mean, I just quote directly from him a little bit.
Sure.
In the end, at the origins of these imposing buildings, of which the sports hub would be one of them, as with any other undertaking that leaves a positive mark on our world, while people may think that they are primarily about money, techniques, or even engineering ability, which are certainly useful, very useful, what we really find is love, precisely the love that builds up. The Holy Father is actually pointing to Singaporeans. Your skyscraper is very impressive. Your city is very impressive. And in Evangelii Gaudium, he actually talks about his vision of model cities, and the way he praised Singapore. I think Singapore is probably on his list.
Yes.
Nevertheless, he also reminds Singaporeans, it is not just simply because you know how to build something so impressive, but you are motivated by love of country and love of people to make the city more livable, and that is actually foundational. Now, when he said that, it just reminded me of one of those National Day songs, J.J. Lin, right? Okay. He talks about it.
Yes.
As we look around, as we see, right, a nation built with love by you and me, our home, our heart.
Correct.
Yeah, correct. So,
correct.
And somehow I just thought of that particular song.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it could have gone. Some people could have taken it, wrongly also, But I'm sure the Holy Father was also, again, trying to also remind us that we have to do all things in love and truly. When he was first talking about it, the Tower of Babel came to mind. Really.
That was built by knowledge, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
They were knowledgeable, they were knowledgeable engineers, but no love, full of pride, and that's not good. Yeah.
And I think actually every developing society can go that way.
Yes.
Right? And so all of us have to be truly very careful, even in our own lives, as we strive to educate ourselves as well, or our children for that matter. Knowledge puffs up.
Yeah.
Right? We have to be careful of how we use the gifts that we are given.
Yes. And actually, one of my favorite YouTube feed, I only saw that after the Mass, because when I watched it on YouTube, it was actually one of the images showing Sister Gerard Fernandez.
Ah, yes, Sister Gerard.
Our very famous sister, and reaching out to the Holy Father. I remembered I saw it on YouTube live, so I during catechism, I showed the picture and I says, can you all recognize two legends wearing white? Then they will look at the picture. Okay, we can recognize the Pope. Who's the other legend? Who's the nun? Then who's the nun? Then I was able to share the story with Sister Gerard.
Right.
And for listeners who do not know, it was Sister Gerard actually spends numerous years counseling prisoners, many on death row.
That's correct.
So she reconciled many to God. And for me, I think she was a very concrete example of witnessing to the statement, knowledge puffs up, but love builds up. I can imagine some of this is just my speculation.
Right.
I can imagine some of the people whom she counseled, probably quite smart in the eyes of the world.
Yeah.
And they are in jail, and they probably realized for themselves over time that what was my cleverness built on,
Absolutely.
what mattered in the end, and ultimately what would matter would be my conscience, reconciliation with God. And so that particular image, I saw on YouTube where she reached out to the Holy Father was actually particularly poignant for me.
Right. Do you know Sister personally?
I would not say, I dare to say I know her personally, but we have spoken. I've invited her to speak to some of my catechism students.
Right.
And they were very fascinated, and I will always play her testimony for class.
Correct.
So we have spoken.
Yeah.
And,
Okay.
I would not dare to say I know her personally.
Yeah, I've been very blessed to know Sister personally, and she's truly a lovely soul.
Yes.
Truly, and I say that with great sincerity. I've worked with her before. She's also got a very beautiful voice. She sings beautifully. Actually, she's got two other sisters, both also nuns, and they somehow or other have given their lives to the Lord, and really, but the fruits of her labor. I've worked with her in the prison ministry before, and I have seen, and I can, in a sense, testify that people have changed. Their destination didn't change. They had to face the music as it was, as they were sentenced, but they realized, as you said, that they needed to change their own perceptions and their own thoughts about how, actually at the end of the day, God was the most important.
Yes, and I think they experienced the love of God through Sister Gerard.
Yeah.
And that was the change.
And she's a very simple, very very soft-spoken person, and it's really, as Pope Francis says, she's all loving. Yeah. And so thank you for sharing that picture of Sister Gerard really truly reaching out to the Holy Father. I'm glad she touched him, actually.
Yes. Actually, it was actually it's very poignant.
Very
poignant image. Yeah.
On a personal note, has Pope Francis's trip and message, after listening to him, how has that, maybe given you different perspectives in the areas of education or catechesis in which you're involved in both?
I guess first thing is that it caused me to reread Evangelii Gaudium, and the second reading, because you need to prepare for the conference, is much more impactful than a first reading.
Okay.
And I found a lot of inspiration, especially for the how of evangelization. So that's a very good thing.
Yeah.
And he's actually quite funny. He is. I would consider him as a stand-up comedian.
The Holy Father.
Comedian, yeah, quite up there, because his comic timing is pretty good. And even in Evangelii Gaudium, I remember writing a smiley on one of his phrases.
Right.
He was talking about homilists.
Correct.
And then
he's got a lot to say about homilists.
A lot to say, and then he says that I'm paraphrasing from memory. Sometimes the experience is very painful for the homilists who prepare it, and for those who need to listen to it. I put a smiley there. I said, that's quite funny. That one. Then, of course, he started off that way. And then he said, let's make it less painful for both. And these are my suggestions. Please do, then you will be less painful. So when I remember, that was quite funny. And when I read it for myself, obviously I don't give homilies, but as somebody who communicates the faith, I found everything there to be relevant.
Absolutely.
And in fact, if I didn't remember wrongly, one of the things which the Office of Catechesis recommends is to catechists to read is Evangelii Gaudium.
Right.
I can see why, because actually, if you just change the word homily to catechesis or to education,
right,
everything is relevant.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
Everything to make your content engaging can be spiritually nourishing, can be found in Pope Francis's indications in Evangelii Gaudium about the homily.
Right.
Yeah, correct. So on how to choose the relevant topic, how not to deviate from the text, how to understand the text in the original context, and he said something very beautiful: where your synthesis is, your heart is.
Wow.
So we are not, in other words, to ensure that the homily is engaging, you need to make sense of the text yourself and help others who your audience to make sense of it. So a one-size-fits-all homily or one-size-fits-all catechesis, and I just talk about the area which I'm doing, will not work. Yes, and sometimes people wonder, you know so much, shouldn't you just give the catechesis? Others will just follow you. Actually, the answer from Pope Francis is no, we would want a symphony of voices, because where your synthesis is, your heart is. Right. So somebody of a certain age can synthesize the text in a certain way.
Correct.
A younger person with a different life experience a certain way. An older person a certain way. Somebody whose educational level may not be as high as another person, but both are engaging with the same content. And so this chorus of voices is really at the heart of good evangelization, catechesis, and it will be a less painful experience for both the preparer and the listener.
Right.
So that was actually very influential, at least when I reread it again.
Right.
It challenged me to do better. It confirmed some of my intuitions as well.
Right, right. Do you have the opportunity to also, do this in, when you are teaching, say, students, other than in a catechetical setting?
I think even for the topic you want to teach, for example, history. Let's say you want to talk about something. Sometimes I like to joke with people. These days I get paid. Previously I was working in a church setting, so it was very enjoyable. But these days I get paid to talk about the Malayan Union or the Federated Malay States. Usually most students will find that very boring,
Right.
Yeah, correct. And the only way, I think, or at least part of the solution for the teacher, is to make sense of what he's studying personally. I remember the conversation I had with a younger teacher. Why are you teaching this? And she replied, because it's in the exam.
Right.
I said, are there any other reasons why are you teaching this? She very honestly said, should there be? I said, yes, because you need to ask yourself that question. It must be personal, and personally meaningful to you, your own synthesis of the content before you're able to make it engaging for others.
Yeah.
And likewise, this same principle, because for catechesis, you can't say it is not, because for the exam you must know this, for your confirmation you must know this, because honestly, you want to get confirmed, the most baseline criteria is your attendance. And so it's like, if you don't know this, that's one thing. That's a topic for another day. But the whole point is this: in catechism, there will be no such thing as exam, but people should nevertheless find what you share deeply meaningful and transformative.
Yeah.
And some people would have experienced that, and that's why they're back and they're serving and so on. So I think where your heart, where your synthesis is, your heart is. That's actually in Evangelii Gaudium.
And actually it makes so much sense, because when someone is knowledgeable and is passionate about a particular topic, or or an expertise or an experience that he or she shares, when it comes from a personal perspective, and your heart is already there, it's the way they will present. That way of presenting will definitely capture the attention of whoever is sitting before them.
People can feel whether they are speaking from the heart, we say, right?
Absolutely.
Or just simply speaking from a script.
Or from from the top of the head, or because you need to know.
Yeah, because you need to know, and this is just information rather than something potentially transformative. Yeah,
correct.
That's the difference.
Yeah, transformative, and that's the operative word, actually.
Yeah, correct. So, and actually, he during Pope Francis's pontificate, he actually published a new directory of catechesis.
Yes.
He published it during COVID-19.
That's correct.
Many people maybe never talk about it that much, but actually it's very impactful, because he talks about who the catechist is, and he identifies three aspects. The catechist is a witness, an accompanier, and a teacher. So if you actually use the acronym WATER, a catechist should be water. You want to misquote Bruce Lee, right? Be water, my friend. Yeah. So a witness, he is somebody who have encountered Jesus personally and has stories to share.
Right.
Both of his encounter with Jesus and also of the doctrine he's teaching. So that's like first-hand witness. So he should witness with his life.
Right.
That would be different from, you can teach something in an abstract fashion. Let's say you can teach like maybe the ideology of communism. Sure, what it is, but I'm not a witness. I'm not a communist.
Correct.
But for a religion teacher can teach about Catholicism, right? But he's not a Catholic, right? So she can't be a witness by definition.
Correct.
But a catechist can't. The catechist must be a witness. So that's the first. Second is an accompanier. So the catechist must know how to, walk with people, be a traveling companion. You may be at level 9, the student is at maybe level 1. Please walk with them so that they can move from level 1 to level 2 or even level 1.5.
Yeah.
Be sympathetic and accompany them in life, plant the seeds, wait for opportune moments. So this idea of being an accompanier is very important. And that's the second part of the identity. And finally, the third one is actually teacher. So the part about teacher, you are teaching Catholic doctrine.
Right.
You are trying to echo how Christ the teacher teaches and try to teach like him. So I found the idea of teacher quite important because sometimes as Catholics, we like to say, sometimes maybe for catechism didn't go so well, or maybe RCIA class didn't go so well.
Yeah.
And we sometimes over spiritualize. We say, it's okay, when the Holy Spirit works, people will be moved. Okay, that is true, but perhaps Pope Francis said himself, right?
Yeah.
Was it painful for you and painful for the listener? Maybe that's why they are not interested. Have you examined that? Right? Not so. If your part of your identity is being a teacher, means you need to ask yourself also, how do I teach well? The normal techniques of engaging people, starting from where they are and so on. So that is important because there's a saying from a French philosopher, Étienne Gilson, very famous philosopher, medieval philosophy. He says, piety is not a substitute for technique. So please don't pray the problem away. Even though it may be RCIA and catechism, you should pray.
That is
always.
Yes.
But after you pray already, learn how to teach well. Don't pray that I can be a better teacher, so go and learn. Don't pray so that I don't need to teach. So I think that is actually important.
That's very interesting. Wow. Okay. So I'm sure that at this conference that you're going to have on Saturday, you all are going to be part of that. You're going to be all playing roles as evangelizers, as teachers, as people who have had an encounter with the Lord, I think. And I think that's what you are saying, isn't it? Really, if we have not had an encounter with the Lord, there's nothing to share. We can't share what we don't have.
We can share in a very second-person way. This is what the Pope says. This is what Jesus says.
Correct.
Okay, but what do you think of what Jesus says? I'm not interested in. You can talk like that right now, and then that would be a bit tragic, like right now.
Yeah.
Correct. So that's the thing.
Okay. So, dear sisters and brothers, once again, the Catholic Theological Network is organizing this conference this Saturday, the 30th of November. And the conference is titled Pope Francis in Singapore, Theological Musings Inspired by the Papal Visit. I believe there is a registration fee. Yes, of $20. And that's because, for meals and refreshments and all of that, right? And also so that they know how many people they can cater for, right? So that little love offering, I would like to say, actually. And the time is from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., and it's going to be held at the Catholic Theological Institute of Singapore. I mean, makes sense, right? Upper Bukit Timah. Still, you can register for it, right?
Yes, you can register for it. www.facebook.com/Catholic Theology Network. If you find us on Facebook, you can find the registration link.
Okay. Nick, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for sharing actually your very personal views on Pope Francis's visit here to Singapore and what his message has meant for you as well.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. So, dear sisters and brothers, thank you also. If you've been listening to us on our live stream in this particular Faith Perspective, you'll be able to listen to the encore broadcast at 8 p.m. tonight, 5 p.m. tomorrow on Wednesday, and then again at 2 p.m. on Thursday. And at your own time, of course, you can catch our podcast on Spotify and iTunes. So that's it from me. Thank you so much for joining us here on Catholic SG Radio. You take care. God bless and love you all. Bye-bye.